You are listening to the Life Coach Business Podcast, episode number 72. Welcome to the Life Coach Business Podcast, a show for coaches who are ready to up-level their business and take their impact, leadership, and results to a whole new level. If you're ready to start taking powerful action and become the leader your business needs in order to grow and thrive, this show is for you. I'm your host, Amanda Karlstad, certified life and business coach and entrepreneurial leadership expert. Now let's get down to business. All right, everyone. I am super excited today. I have such a special guest on the show. I have Dr. Tangie, who is a dear client of mine. And
Hey,
I'm so excited to have her on the show today and for her to share about her journey and some of the wins she's had and really the work she's done to get where she is today and share that with all of you. There's going to be a ton of gems that you're going to be able to take, a ton of takeaways, I think, from this episode. So I'm super, super excited to have you, Dr. Tanji. So why don't we just start? You're welcome. So let's just start. Why don't you give us a brief intro of you and what you do, who you coach, all of that. We'll start there.
Yeah. So I am Dr. Tanji, and I coach high achieving women who think they're struggling with burnout to align their goals with their souls so that they can have both success and happiness. And this came about because of my own journey through the professional world. I was one of those kids that, knew I wanted to be successful when I grew up. I was very adept at the STEM subjects, so science, math, all of that stuff. And so I ended up choosing medicine as a profession. And I went to medical school and got almost all the way through. And then one day I guess like the culmination of just the way medical training is set up and how a lot of times, at least this is my experience, like I feel like I kind of lost myself in that process. Like if I compare myself to the person who went into medical school, like I went to a school specifically whose mission it was for people to go and help underserved communities. And I had all this sense of purpose about myself when I entered. And I don't know what happened between point A and point B, point breakdown, but but one day I just looked up and I was like, wait a second, this is not at all what I thought. This is like the Facebook commercial, like, no, this is not how this works. This isn't how any of this is supposed to work. And so I was very much at that time identifying with being burnt out. And so and also actively looking for jobs outside of medicine, because I was like, obviously I made a wrong turn somewhere. And in that process, I found life coaching, and it was very powerful. A very powerful tool for me. And as I did my own work and transformed my own life, I was like, I think I'd be pretty good at this, and I want to help other doctors at the time. And so I got certified, and then I started my first coaching business, which is helping physicians with burnout.
Nice. And what type of clients do you work with today?
Yeah. So that's not what I thought it was going to look like either, but in the best way.
Yeah.
So initially, I was working only with physicians, and then I'm sure we'll talk about this later, but then I had this epiphany, and I was like, wait a second, something's, I want to create this a little bit differently. And so when I launched the brand Dr. Tanji, I thought it would be, my intention was just to open it up. So I thought it would be physicians and lawyers and engineers. Because ironically, in my physician coaching business, I had a lot of lawyers that were like, hey, I know I'm not a doctor, but I really need you to coach me. Yeah. And so I had a few lawyers that were clients as well. But surprisingly, what I found is that a lot of people, and I think it's just because of my messaging and the kind of things that like I really love to coach on, like dealing with like identity shifting and, like transformation essentially. And so now like a lot of the people that come to me happen to be people in the C-suite, which I never would have expected. People who have their own businesses, and they're not necessarily coaches, but they've like had their own businesses for years and run them. So I found that to be like very fascinating and fun. And
Yeah.
so, but I also have some physicians as well. And I don't have any more lawyers anymore, but I'm sure there's more coming.
There's probably more out there. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So let's talk for a minute, because when you and I started working together, you were at kind of you were at a big turning point in your business
Yes.
when you came to me. And I remember our initial call and the ideas and kind of the vision that you had for the business. So talk about like that transition and what that became, and kind of let's talk a little bit about some of the work that we did to
Yes.
develop the brand today, right? To develop Dr. Tanji, and to, here you are working with now C-suites and, all sorts of high achievers and professionals. And talk a little bit about that journey.
Yeah. So it was kind of like my life got turned upside down in the best way. I had really like I was at this point where I had been doing my own work for years,
Hmm.
and like it I don't know, I found like this really sweet spot where I had, not to sound like cocky or anything, but it was like I just figured it out, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, wait a
Yeah.
second, I think I just
Yeah.
figured it out. And so like I was creating all of this like massive change in my own life. Like, I created a job that gave me, more than double the money in half the time. And so I was creating like all these things that I created a cross country move because my dad was going through some health problems. And when I was looking at like all these great things I was creating, then like no shade to my first baby business, but like I looked at it and I was like, I don't think I like this very much. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't me. And the only
Yeah.
reason I was holding on to it was because I thought I should, or I thought it wasn't anything because of what I wanted to do myself. It was like,
Hmm.
oh, people are going to judge me if I,
Mm.
or they're going to think I'm a quitter, or that I'm like, scatterbrained or
Right.
what
Yeah.
have you.
Yeah.
And so, so I just kind of like stopped for some months, because I was
Hmm.
like, I really
Yeah.
don't know what I want to do with it, but I know I don't want to go forward with it. And I was just trying to like figure out my own feelings around it, my own motivations. And I was in the middle of a cross country move and like this new job. And so like when all the dust settled, I was like, okay, so I know like I love coaching and I want to continue coaching. And I know this business isn't a fit for me anymore. And so then I was actually referred to you
Yeah.
by a good friend of mine, Dr. Sonia.
Yeah.
And so she was like, you have to work with Amanda. She's amazing, blah, blah, blah. And so I was like, I don't know, but I was like, okay. And so I was kind of hesitant at first, but like I saw like the progress she was having like in her own
Mm-hmm.
business, and then
Yeah.
she spoke so highly of you. And so I was like, okay, well, let me just schedule a consult. And what I love from like the beginning is just like I know like myself as a person that maybe from the outside in, sometimes I appear really kind of like straight laced or something like that. But like it's kind of like I don't know. It's like I'm like this like beautiful enigma that like flows like outside of the box a
Yeah.
lot,
Yeah.
and not everybody is able to like hold space for that. And so like I really liked how like you were able to kind of like hold space for that and like flow with like what was coming out. Like it was like a co-creation in a sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was that vision, right? It was like building on that vision, I think, that you already had. Like I could see that very clearly
Yeah.
from our first call. Like the work that you do it is a little bit different, I think, than what we normally might think of when we're talking
Yes.
about coaching, right? There's a whole I think, new level with you that I think is really, really powerful and I think is your gift. And, that's part of why, honestly, I love working with you because I see that every time, we coach, and I see that so much in your business, and I can see the future and the vision, and kind of, being able to bring that out even more. It's just such a beautiful, beautiful work that you're able to do, and a beautiful, I think, angle that you bring to the coaching relationship, to the coaching process that is very unique. Very unique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you kind of helped me like take all of my like Legos, like they were all over the floor and be like, okay, what do you want to build? And then, I
Yeah.
was like, say I want to build like a beautiful flower. I
Right.
saw somewhere that somebody just built a bouquet of like flowers with Legos. I thought that was really cool. So say it was like, I was like, Amanda, I want to build this bouquet of flowers, but all of my Legos were on the floor. And so like working with
Yeah.
you, like
Yeah.
for me, because a lot of times like I get stuck in the land of like ideas and intentions. Like you're very gifted in being like, okay, so let's take this Lego and put it here. Like let's actually start building it. Like let's get it on the calendar. Let's
Yeah. Let's make
let's
it
have a
real.
plan. Yeah, let's make it real. And
Right.
so
Right.
it's been like really fun. Yeah.
I love it. And it's so beautiful what you've built so far. So let's talk a little bit about that. So recently you had some really big wins in your business that I'd love for you to talk about,
Yes.
because we spent a lot of time last year. So we've been working together, Tangie, almost a year now. I think it was March, April, maybe, of last year when we
Yeah, I
originally
scheduled
started.
my consult the first week of March last
Yeah.
year.
Yeah. Yeah. So coming up on a year. So,
Yeah.
right? And it seems like yesterday. So, we did a lot of work in the last 12 months. There's a lot that goes into building a brand, building a business, and I talk about that all of the time, right? Like this is really a long game, and I know you get that. I know I know you're in it for the long game too. But recently you had some really big wins that was really, it was beautiful to witness, for me to witness for you, and
Yeah.
so exciting for you. And I'd love you to talk a little bit about
Yeah.
that. Yeah. So share with us,
Yeah, well,
what
the
are they?
first one the first one is like I'm finally like fully booked,
Yeah.
and I guess I shouldn't say finally because like all of this happened. I know we're talking about a year-long process, but for me like between March and like it was like 6 months of really just figuring out like
Mhm.
what this new foundation and what this new business is going to
Yep.
be.
Yep.
And so I didn't even start and so then like and so it was like September I was like, well, I really want to start a podcast, and so we worked together on that. And so I think that was like the first big win, but then I was still kind of freaking out because I was like it hasn't like caught on yet. But then like it took me until probably another 3 months. So in December, I think is when like the floodgates kind of opened. And so like now, like the first big win, well, I guess the podcast is a big win too. So, but so like the second big win is that like I'm like fully booked. And then the third big win is that this is my third 5-digit month.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You've
Yeah.
been hitting some really big
Yeah.
numbers in your business. Do you want to share?
Yeah.
Do you want to share what those are? You don't have to, but it's up to you if you want to.
Well, yeah, so it's like, so I was making money like since the time that, we kind of like officially launched everything, but then
Yeah.
like December, I hit over 10K.
Yep.
January, I hit over 10K. February, in the first week, I hit over 10K. So
Amazing. Yeah.
I'm just like, whoa, look at me.
Right.
Look at
Yeah.
Amanda.
It-
I think it's those days you come into the coaching with the red lipstick.
it's my game face, right?
Yeah. I'm like, oh man, she's not playing around. She has that red lipstick on. We're about to get down to business.
Oh, yeah, I'm in it when I have my red lipstick on, that's for sure. So we should talk about that for a minute, because I think that's like, let's elaborate a little bit on that, on just the coaching kind of journey and process. Like, I think, from that standpoint, I think, sometimes you can only gather so much from someone, right? From a website and even a podcast, right? But what are some of the biggest inner transformations, right? Like, so we've had so much of the outer with the brand and the launching and the podcast and all of that. But from an inner game standpoint, what are some of the biggest transformations that you've had in the last 12 months, would you say?
Yeah, it's one of them is courage to
Mm.
kind of step more into like who I am as bring more of all of me into coaching because I think I've been very fragmented. And I think, a lot of that probably does have to do with my training in medicine. It's just kind of like you go to medical school, you choose, are you a pediatrician?
Mhm.
Are you an internist? Are you a pathologist?
Mm.
And I chose
Yes.
a pathologist. And then it's like, okay, so what kind of pathologist are you? It's like this whole like niche down, niche down, niche down. And
Right.
you focus on like this one little thing. And
Mm.
so for me, I was just like, well, wait a second. I have like all these other things that I feel like kind of make me wonderful, but I was kind of scared to introduce them into
Mhm.
what I do as a coach because I don't know. I just had this idea that like, okay, if I trained as a particular type of
Mhm.
coach,
Mhm.
then that's kind of like what people are expecting. And I should only be that
Mm.
type of coach,
Yes.
instead of
Yes.
like being like, oh, well, I'm also interested in this over here. And so I've picked up other certifications and other interests, in particular in like energy
Mhm.
work and energy healing
Yes.
and meditation and like all of these things and bringing more of people's souls. That's kind of like my tagline. Like I help you align your goals with your souls, because I think that's kind of like in my own journey and in the journey of others that I've witnessed. Like that's when true happiness begins to blossom. So I think like for me, like this whole year has just kind of been a journey of courage and like
Mm.
being fearful and that okay, I'm fearful, okay, so let's see how I can bring all of me into helping the people who are coming to me for help.
Totally. That's one of the things that I appreciate about you and working with you, Tangi, is that, despite all of, excuse me, the inner, talk and the inner whatever is going on within the brain, you've always been like, okay, but I'm moving forward anyways, right? Like I'm taking action. I'm
Yeah.
putting, right? Like I'm going to move forward on this. I'm going to launch the podcast, right? I'm going to redo this website.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that. Like it's always been one of the things that I've appreciated, and I think that's contributed to your success, is that you, despite all of that, stayed in action and you stayed in the belief. What I see in you is that you have such a deep belief in yourself and in the work that you do that's helped to keep you
Yes.
focused, right? And of course, there's always times where there's different things that come up. It's never 100%, but one of the things that I do see with you is that you've been able to really hone in on on the work that you're doing with your clients, moving forward in that belief, in that strong belief. Like you have a really internal,
Yes.
the core of it. You know that regardless of what happens externally, that you create your results. And that's something I really appreciate about you because and that's one of the things that I talk, especially with newer coaches that are really trying to launch their business for the first time, maybe haven't worked with a whole lot of clients, is really helping them cultivate that inner belief so that they can
Mhm.
maintain energetically, right? What's really needed to
Mhm.
build an actual business. And that's not an easy thing for most people.
It's kind of like being pregnant, right? It's just
Yeah.
kind of like, you get the pregnancy test, you see that it's positive, you're going to have a baby,
Yeah.
God
Yeah.
willing. And like, it's like, but like, there's this whole 9 months in between, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it might not be like 9 months for everybody, like with a coaching business, but there
Right.
is like this creation process, this birthing process that you do need to kind of like have some staying intention
Mhm.
for.
Mhm.
It's like, I think a
100%.
lot of times, like, because there are so many people who are successful in coaching, and it appears that it's quick success. Some people might have very quick success in coaching, but some people, it just appears that way, but they've been working on it like for a long
Mm.
time,
Right.
behind the scenes. I'm thinking of like somebody in particular right now who like had this massive year this year,
Yeah.
but and it looks like it's been very quick because people have only known about this person like for a short time, but they've been coaching like since like 2009 or something. So
Yeah.
I like,
Yeah.
so I think it's just kind of like, like having the expectation that this, like, your work is needed in the world. It is going to be successful, and it might not be tomorrow that you make, $1 million.
Right.
So yeah, it's like, you kind of have to have that, I think, in order to be successful.
Agreed.
And I think it's actually, if I had to choose in hindsight, like how I would want to do it, I think it would be the path where it was an overnight success. Because like, if for
Mhm.
me, I know like if I had overnight success, like the minute something went wrong, like I would begin to
Mhm.
doubt like everything.
Exactly. Exactly. I was just talking this week to a group of clients about that, about the importance of, in a way, fortifying yourself in this journey and the importance of that, like continually fortifying your belief, right? Your conviction in whatever it is that you're doing, in expecting the results that you want. It's like you have to always be keeping a pulse on that. I really see that very, very often, because when we take our eye off of that and we start to focus too much, whether it's on a Facebook ad or a funnel or, just something external, what tends to happen is that we lose our grounding, right? That inner grounding in what it is that we're
Yeah.
doing, in our actual power in the whole process, right? So those are all
Yeah.
tools, right? These are all things, and you and I have set a lot of that up. You've got a successful funnel happening, like all of that's happening, but that doesn't happen unless the belief is there that's directing
Right.
you creating all of that. So I
Yeah.
think that's a really important point. So what are some things that you have done? Like, when you think about that, like what does that look like for you? What has that looked like for you?
Yeah, I think, the first 6 months, like I said, I was talking about this earlier, like the first 6 months we worked together, that was like this big creation
Mhm.
process. So I
Yep.
had to get, we went through a couple of nightmare situations, but like I had to get the website done. I had to get whatever funnel I was going to use created. I chose to create a quiz, and which behind the it looks amazing. Like you go to
It
my
is
website,
amazing.
it looks amazing and it's like fun to take and it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
But that took like 2 months to
Yes, it
create,
did.
you know?
Yeah.
And it took
Yeah.
like, and it wasn't like just 2 months, like an hour a day. Like it was like 2 months of like
Yeah.
work,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
create that, and intense. It was intense. I remember being very tired. And
Yeah.
then, even the same thing, like like with the website. So it takes like a lot of patience, at least, for me, it took a lot of patience on the front end. And especially being a entrepreneur, it takes a lot of patience and a lot of willingness to spend before you make
Mhm.
the money. And I know
Mhm.
everybody's journey is a little bit different, but for me that's how it unfolded.
Yeah.
And so I'm grateful that I didn't allow myself to talk myself out of this journey, because to most people, like it doesn't, it doesn't make sense.
Mhm. Yeah. And isn't that interesting? But that's the belief, right? Going back to that belief,
Mhm.
despite, I think that's so critical. Doesn't matter what your journey
Yeah.
looks like, right? Because yeah, to
Yeah, the
most people,
belief.
the reality that what I observe is that the majority of the coaches that are successful to most people, that journey, we only see the highlights, right? We only
Yeah.
see what's on either social media, or it looks like that overnight success. Excuse me, a lot of times, right? And what we don't see are the hours that are poured into maybe a
Yeah.
funnel, right? The
Yeah.
money that's put into building that,
Yeah.
the ads, if that's the case, or, whatever that looks like. And so I do think being able to maintain that and develop that and cultivate that, again, like fortifying that belief despite what the results are, is critical.
Yeah.
It's absolutely critical. It's
Yeah.
staying committed, right?
Staying committed. Yeah. The belief, and
Mhm.
also just really making sure that the validation that you're getting is like your own,
Yes.
you
Oh,
know?
yes. Can we talk about that, please?
Yeah.
Because I know you and I have had many conversations about that. And this is really a core of the work that you do with your clients.
Yes. Yeah. It's like making sure I notice that I'm most successful when I am following my own internal compass. And I think that this is why I love working with you so much as a coach, is because you honor. You're able to, like, once I kind of show you, like, well, actually, like, this is, I don't think we've ever disagreed about anything, but like, if we were to, I would be like, well, actually, I think, I kind of want to go a little bit east. And then it's just kind of like, fine, right? So I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, at times people may be working with coaches or mentors, and they won't follow what's in their gut to do with their own business because of a particular coach's or mentor's belief
Hmm.
that that's not the way it
Yep.
should be done.
Yep.
And I think that everything everybody's trying to put into the world has a life of its own. It has a mission of its own, in helping humanity, and to not honor its voice is to kind of suffocate it.
Agreed.
So yeah, so I think that belief in what you're doing and the commitment to honor the voice of your business, the voice of like your own purpose, the voice of like your own mission, is
Hmm.
imperative to
Hmm.
success.
And I think it's also doing the work to even know what that is.
Yes.
Right? Because I think there's a lot of times we want to skip that part, right? I see
Right.
this a lot where we just want to skip it and let's just start running Facebook ads and just like let the money flow from the sky, right? The problem with that is that unless we are in alignment, and I love how you worded it, giving it that voice, because
Yeah.
that is a lot of the work that we have done. I mean, that's so important to me with my clients, because when you are out of alignment with that, it's not going to work. It does not matter what strategy or how well this is performing or converting. When you aren't in alignment with the work and connected to that and even know what that is, that bigger why, that bigger mission, that movement that you're really creating, it's a very hard uphill
Yes.
battle. Very hard. And so often
Yes.
doesn't lead to the result, right? Because the doubts come in and the fear comes in, and
Right.
then we start giving into that, right? So I
Right.
love that. I think that's really important. And I will say this is something that I've been thinking about even personally lately, about just what you said. So it's so interesting you brought this up about how important it is, I believe, when someone is, whether it's working with me, someone else, or even myself, right? Looking at who am I working with, that being able to hold that space, right, for what it is that I want to build
Yes.
or that you want to build,
Yes.
and not staying totally within the box, right? And not, I guess,
Yeah.
allowing for us to go up, paint outside of the box, so to speak. So important. So
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, like, also ensuring that your clients, this is what I'm finding out too. Like, the clients that come to me, I also want them to be in alignment with not in the sense that I'm trying to like, control people, but like what they're seeking out help for, like when I'm taking on a client has to be in alignment with the mission that I'm trying to put forth into the world.
Right.
And I can tell whether it is or it isn't, is like if I'm on a consult call and if I'm, for example, like I had a consult one time and the person, wanted help with some issues. And as she was talking, like I just started feeling it in my body. Like,
Mm.
you know how like when it's like spring cleaning day and you don't want to like when you see something coming up like
Yeah.
final
Yeah.
exams or something and you're like I don't want to do that. But then I think a lot of people, like I think that's a pivotal thing, like how even you're creating your clientele, like you're still creating your business. And if that's not in alignment with you, then you just create problems down the road. And it wasn't that the person on the consult was like bad or like whatever. It was just that particular issue. I felt like somebody else would be better suited to help her. And I think like some things you can't see. I think like a lot of times people's first instinct is this person's coming to me, they want help, and I'm going to help them, even
Right.
though in their own body they don't really feel that client is in alignment. It's not like a good fit. That person isn't going to be a joy. Like that
Mm.
relationship isn't going to be a joy for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
And so, I kind of like warn people against doing that because like I feel like the energy in which you kind of create a relationship, like you're
Mm-hmm.
going to be doing that like throughout
Yeah.
the entire coaching relationship.
Absolutely.
So, like for me, it's very important. Like when I have a consultation, if I'm going to take somebody on as a private client, I have to feel it in my body. Like this person is going to be a joy to
Mm-hmm.
work with,
Mm-hmm.
and I know I
Yeah.
can help them. So yeah, I forgot what got me off on that
That's
tangent, but
okay.
like
Okay.
I just felt it was very important to
It's
say.
good. No, it brings up such a wonderful point because, I think, yeah, inevitably along this journey, especially again when you're newer, I think especially this really comes into play when you feel like, well, you're just not sure, right? You don't have the confidence yet fully in your practice, in what it is that you're doing. Maybe haven't fully developed, that relationship with yourself, that relationship with that
Mhm.
inner guidance, right? Whatever that is for
Yeah.
you. And I mean, honestly, I feel the same way. If I had not had that relationship with my own inner guidance, there's no way I would have created the business that I've created today either. It's so
Yeah.
important. But that also doesn't come overnight. You have to, that's a
Yeah.
continual, this, right? That is continual daily. And and it
Yes.
might look different every day, right? But it is something that
Yes.
has to be cultivated, right? And honored. But I love what you said about really looking at that client and is this person, do I feel this as joy, right?
Mhm.
I think one of the most important questions that we can ask ourselves is what do we really want in our life, right? And so for many of us, it's we want the freedom and the flexibility and to do this transformational work, which is beautiful in and of itself. But as we're doing that, we also want to do that with the most aligned clients that do feel like
Yes.
a joy to work with. And
Yeah, because I think like what's funny is sometimes like we're a lot of coaches are in this for the freedom of it.
mhm, yep.
And there are little things you can do in your business that take that freedom away,
Mm,
including work, and I'm not trying to be on a soapbox or whatever, but just like just stuff like, who you take on as a client, how you spend your time in your business, kind of like even like the self-talk you give yourself in your business. If you're continuously beating yourself up because you think you should be doing it different, that kind of thing. I think there's a lot of things that even though a lot of times we're in the pursuit of freedom,
yeah.
that in our day to day lives as business owners, we take that freedom away from ourselves.
100%. Yeah.
Mhm.
Which is why the alignment and doing the
Yes.
deep inner work is so crucial,
Yes.
right? Is building on that
Yes.
foundation because, and I see this too, and I've talked a little bit about this in different podcast episodes that, and I see this a lot where I see coaches that, like you said, want the freedom and they want the money and they want it all right away. And so they create a business that very much becomes something that they feel trapped, maybe. In some
Mhm.
cases, they get to a point where, and you had a little bit of that experience too with the first launch, right? You get to a point where it's
Yeah.
like, this isn't me. This isn't joyful. This isn't
Yeah.
really what I believe I'm here to do, how I'm really meant to
Yeah.
serve. And so starting there, while we may want to resist it and we just want to jump in and make 100 grand right out of the gate, yes, you can do that. But if it's not built on a solid foundation, it can very quickly backfire and become something that you have to essentially go back and do the work
Mhm.
anyways. So
Yeah.
I think that's really important and something, part of why I've obviously structured the process that I have and how I work with clients. So, and I think you're a great example of that because that's essentially what we did. It was like, okay, you've got this, but you want to go this direction. Well, let's start from square one. And you being willing to
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah. And being willing to go through the process, like, I don't know, I'm just thinking about like a pot roast or something. Like
Yeah.
pot
Yeah.
roast is really delicious when you like slow cook it,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
let it simmer. It's like
Yes.
juicy and tender. Versus if you just throw it in the oven at like 450 and because you want to get it done in like an hour, it's like all
Exactly. Yeah.
dry.
You're right. That's a great example. And then you're thinking, why did I do this? I don't even want this. Right?
And then you're thirsty.
Yeah. Such a good analogy. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like on that point, what advice do you have for others that are in the process of building their coaching practice? That have big goals that want to really do good work in the world. And that's, obviously those are the types of clients that I work with, like yourself, the ones that really want to make a real positive impact and do big things and, be able to experience really the joy with it. What advice would you have?
Yeah, like other than like be willing to do the slow cook. And who knows, like it's like be willing to do the slow cook. You
Yeah.
it may happen quicker than you think,
Hmm.
So it's not like, I'm saying like it has to be like this multiple year process for everybody.
Yeah.
But and then the other thing is just to create with the end in mind, like every day. And if I feel like our emotions are there to teach us things.
Yeah.
So when you start to feel really contracted and
Mm,
stressed out about your business, then I feel like that's an opportunity to look at like what you're creating and how you're creating. And if it continues in the particular trajectory that you have it on, is it going to give you the result that you say you want 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road? And really follow your own voice, like follow your own like internal guidance. And I know that's like a very like fluffy way
yeah. Yeah.
of saying like listen to yourself. I think that's because different people do it in different ways.
Right.
But like if people are unsure of how to do that, like I mean I think a beautiful place to start is to just sit somewhere with absolute quietness, for about 5 minutes, and then just like ponder the question, like, what is it that I really want? Because I think like a lot of people don't even know the answer to that
Oh,
question.
it's by far one of the most important ones in
Yeah.
our life, really.
Yeah.
In our life, right? When you really take a step back and look at that, how we spend our time, that's our life. Who we spend it with,
Yeah.
that's our life, right? We get
Yeah.
one shot. This isn't, dress rehearsal. This is it. This is it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I
And
love
it's
that.
like and that's one of the things, like, I like to create, and it's probably because I'm a forensic pathologist, and so,
Yeah.
like, I'm like one of those I do autopsies, like,
Right.
and so,
Yeah.
like, I like to create everything from my deathbed,
Mm,
and it's a
yes.
little morbid, but, like, if I just kind of reverse engineer it, and I'm like, if I imagine myself, like, on my deathbed, looking back at today,
Yes.
like, what, is that gonna bring me completeness?
Hmm. I think that is such a powerful perspective
Mhm.
to really think from. And yes, it can be a little morbid, but we're all gonna we're all gonna get there at some point.
We're all going.
Yeah, and then when
Yeah.
we get to that point, that's it, right? That's it. And so
Yeah.
that's something too that I do think about a lot in my own journey, and really important question I think for everybody listening to ask themselves as they're in this journey. And especially I think in the times where you feel like, okay, is this going to work? Is this right when the doubts are there?
Mhm.
I just think when you can come at it from that perspective and that level of belief, knowing that this is a choice, and you know this how much I talk about choice and decision, because at the end of the day, that's it.
Mhm.
This is a choice. The level of success that you have is literally a choice. Yes, there's steps within that, but at the very core of this all, it's really a decision. And so
Yeah.
I believe that everybody's one decision away from whatever it is that they're wanting to create, to achieve, whether it's, a business, money, whatever that is, it's always going to come back to that decision. And, looking at it from
Yeah.
that perspective, thinking about at the end of it all, what is that going to look like? Can I look at in the
Yeah.
mirror, right? And be
Yeah.
happy with what I've created, right? Proud with what I've created here.
Yeah. And for
Awesome.
me, a big part of that is being able to enjoy the journey along the
Yes.
way,
So good.
because that's so important to me now, because, like, I've honestly, like, the way I went through medical school was like this whole big rush and hurry, and I got to do
Mhm.
this, and
Mhm.
you know, a whole bunch of, like, people pleasing, and just
Yeah. Yeah, it was the
an
system.
experience
Yeah.
I would not go through again. So
Mm.
yeah, yeah, a lot, part of it was the system, and a part of it was me,
Yeah.
and, like, feeling like, I just feeling like I had to be something that maybe I'm not, like, a lot of the
Mm.
time. So, but that's a whole different conversation for a different day.
Yeah.
But but all that to say is,
Yeah.
like, I'm in a position in my life, like, where I want to create, I'm creating this, business, this entity, right? And I don't want to create it in that same way. So for me, it's very important to enjoy myself as I go along the journey.
Right.
So if this is going to be another situation where I'm waking up every day, like, talking
Mm.
down to myself, or beating myself up, or comparing myself against somebody else who,
Yeah.
like, in medicine, it was just like, well, this person got into derm. I'm not good enough to get into
Yeah.
derm, or,
Right.
you know what I mean? It's like, well,
Yeah.
so, like, you can transfer that same thing to coaching. Like, oh, well, this person made, I don't know, 600,000 in a year, and
Mhm.
I've only made, whatever it
Right.
is.
Right.
I don't want to create it in that way. And so, I don't know, I just admonish everybody
Mhm.
to, whatever you're doing, whatever you're creating, like, dear God, enjoy yourself.
Right. Right. Otherwise, why? Right?
Right.
Again, we get one shot at this thing called life, right?
Yeah.
Let's
Right.
let's 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 do what we want, right? Let's create this beautiful, like you said, entity, but in the process of that, I really believe that too, that you have to really honor that process. I like to think about that as just the
Yeah.
honoring and the respect of that process, because
Yes.
even going back to what you said earlier, I loved what you said about not in hindsight now where you are today, you can see the value in you going through what it was that you went through to get to today,
Yeah.
and how different that would
Yes.
have been if it was right out of the gate, here's your $1 million business, right? Overnight, which would have been fun to a degree, right? But as soon as, like you said, as soon as something went wrong, not being able to maybe navigate that as well as you can now because of what you've already navigated. It's almost like, I think about this, it's like if you're like a captain of a ship, right? Like if I'm going to go on a cruise, which that's probably another discussion for another day, but if I were to go on a cruise, like you want someone that knows what they're doing, right? You want someone that's probably navigated some storms, that's probably navigated some things in their career versus someone that's just, coming out, that's never has learned it in a book, right? But hasn't actually practiced that. And I just, that part of the process is so valuable. And in my belief, it's almost more valuable than the actual money that's on the other side of it. Right? Like that's the byproduct, and that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Right? But it truly is about the becoming. It's who you become in that process, which is such a beautiful thing. And it's been so wonderful to witness your journey, Dr. Tangie. Thank you so much for being on the show today. I'm so happy to have you on. Is there anything else you want to share before we sign off?
No, I think I'm complete.
I know we went a little over. Yeah.
As far as this conversation, I think I'm complete. I would say that if you are looking for a business coach who can hold all of you and your vision and your magical juiciness, then hire Amanda.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. All right. It's been such a pleasure.
Yes, I appreciate you so much.
I appreciate you. You are a joy to work with. Hey, if you're ready for a real breakthrough in your business and want to grow and scale your business to at least 6 figures or more in annual revenue, I invite you to apply for my exclusive program, The Mastermind, at amandacarlstadcoaching.com/the-mastermind. I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Life Coach Business Podcast. If you want to learn more about how to build, grow, and scale your business and accelerate your results, visit amandacarlstadcoaching.com.